everybody sangha ho karmane kusukdemo kamsa kusukdemo everybody happy Vajrakilaya.
So everybody, the Sangha, I hope you're well and happy for Vajrakilaya.
Welcome everyone. We will begin today's practice with the Yellow Prayer Book, doing the opening prayers on page 1. All Mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All Mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. All Mother sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. I take refuge in the Buddhas until I attain the essence of awakening. Likewise, I take refuge in the Dharma and in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. Just as the Buddhas of the past gave rise to bodhicitta and progressed along the Bodhisattva's path, so shall I give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all beings and practice the stages of the Bodhisattva's path. Next, we'll do the Sadhana of Vajrakilaya in English, with Masha zooming in from Russia to lead us in the Umze chanting.
So we start with page 1. To the spoken word lineage I pray, primordial kuntu zandorje chan, Tianis herukas lekivan mon, Prabhahasti dorje to tranca, Drima shenyan finte arbiskin, Shilaman joshankya devivin, and subjects 25 nanam chim, Shuburonzom and the clan of Kon, may the fortress of the view be gained, to reveal treasure lineage I pray. Choki vanchuk plom tridzin godem, antarnisht vajra sangelin pam, rin ancient Palsan and self-liberated, Padma Lindu Dunu Denzam Lind, Dorje Tsaraton Chog Yurlin name, meditation's perilous paths be crossed, to the Dharma holders who transmit venerable Magyakate glorious, disciples Nuborden Suzorland, useful Atsaralan Labjandor, his four disciples Darcharenzan, Rokchalter Daglin Chagmed arrest, may conduct's life force be ceased, I pray, to Kilaya's divine mandala, Vajrasattva embodiment of peaceful and wrathful families display. Dharme Vajra, master of secrets, Vajra Vidarana Katin throne, the root of delusive thought and hume, deity within whom is complete, all enlightened acts to tame beings, body of compassionate wrath you rise, from Dharma space great blazing tamer, of demons the 100-mood dancer, splendorous great Heruka Vajrayus, Mother Korlog Yedem Uniono, primordial wisdom and basic space, 10 powers, perfections, 10 royal pairs, beast-faced ones, gatekeepers, those bound ones, mighties and the rest, to you I pray. Grant complete victory over Mara, when a dark blue weapon perfected, self-born Rigpa rises in dawn, gate of life force as wisdom roars down, all pervasive wisdom Kila strikes into open Dharma Dhatu space, makes sever dualistic souls, when one sees skandhas and elements, as 3 seeds filled with Vajra wills and unelaborated consciousness, as the great bliss Vajra Dakilam, of immeasurable compassion strikes the beings of 6 classes made lame, seize the rescue rope of compassion, when the union of wisdom and form sparks of terrifying, blazing, wrathful ones. Dakila of bodhicitta strikes into the mother's secret expanse. Make clouds of sublime suns emanate, when existence and all beings are known as Vajra, wrathful the substance, killer of signs not releasing strikes, at harm doers who are grasping at the three poisons and appearances, penetrate them to their final end, conquering the demon of skandha's hand. Liberate this body as deity, conquer the demon of afflictions with the seal of bliss and emptiness, conquering the demon of deserting, dominion of immortal life, conquering the Mara demon of gods, reach the spontaneous perfecting ground, made of four extended qualities, be swiftly accomplished and specially made of flames of wrathful mantra rites, incinerate the evil hearts of hindering enemies and obstructors, may glorious Heruka stay in being. Page 12. Namo all sentient ones with reverent three doors take refuge in the Guru triple gem, hidden and victorious host. Namo all sentient ones with reverent three doors take refuge alas to liberate those ancient ones and transform samsara to Kilaya's mandala, rouse the four immeasurables, alas to liberate those ancient ones and transform samsara to Kilaya's mandala, rouse the four immeasurables, alas to liberate those ancient ones and transform samsara to Kilaya's mandala, rouse the four immeasurables. Next, page 7. Om Vajra Amrita Kundali Hanna Hanna Om Pet Om Swabhava Shuddha Sarvat Dharma Swabhava Shuddhoham. From the state of emptiness appears a broom, from which arises a jeweled vessel. Inside the vessel is an Om, from which appears a Dharma which transforms into nectar. Om Ahum, Om Ahum, Om Ahum. Om Prithvi Devi Lokapala Saparivara Vajra Samanja. Om Prithvi Devi Lokapala Saparivara Idambalinta Kakakahikagi. Om Prithvi Devi Lokapala Saparivara Idambalinta Kakakahikagi. Om Prithvi Devi Lokapala Saparivara Idambalinta Kakakahikagi. Om Prithvi Devi Lokapala Saparivara Arnyam Panyam Pushpedupem Aloke Gande Nevidye Shatapati Chasva. Sen most men most flesh eaters most spirits who hunt thousand demons. Divangada sees goblin demons, loka gods be down in this land. Custodians who guard the sanghas, lost treasure guards lords of this holy site. Other hosts of God's demons spirits, those Bangenian spirits accepting this golden libation and prepared wisdom, purest substances. Is your minds of hostile wicked souls be my virtuous allies at all times, as I strive toward great awakening, making effort towards ancient ones, saying, please make the conditions favorable in these countries, regions, and places, first protecting them, Mangada, Caesars, lords, spirits, kings, ministers, and retinues, ascended storma of pure substances, and this golden ring, without between trouble, jealous, or intolerant, as I practice to accomplish my Page 13. In spontaneous nature's palace, vast even the concepts of abstract, misleading do not exist. Sinless timeless, radiant, clarity, are established freely natural. Live on in the pervasive primordial. Live pure and spontaneous openly. Spans concepts of confession and confess, self-liberating natural space, yet should there be confusion caused by grasping at perceived, I confess this ignorance to the hosts of self-arisen deities, samayam, puramrita, primally self, born rakta, redness, liberating the 6 realms into basic space, great dawn, phenomena present in the ground. These 3 are the inexhaustible balances in elixirs Om Vajra Pushpe Dupe Aloken Gande Nevidyen Shabda. hands of restful wisdom, flames within the boundless spell as made from primordial wisdom self-projections at its center on lotus sun, moon and fourth-angled demons stands up, whom dark blue beaming light gathering in Beguile rises on fabricated perfect form, great glorious Vajra. Use dark blue with 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs spread wide in a hero's stance. Right face, white left, red central, dark blue microns adorned with the 5 families. At my heart is the life force in whom my 9 eyes glare fiercely to the 10 directions. My gaping mouth shows fangs and twisting tongues. My 2 right hands hold 9 and 5-pronged vajras. My left hands wield a fire mace and cut one gap between lower hands. I roll a Mount Merukila, that's complete. I am with all fearsome charnel rangar, man's great consort or long and applied. Blue one face, 2 arms, her right hand holds a blue lotus and embraces my neck. Her left gives a blunt skull to my lips. At our foreheads blue hunkaryam, metal throws red hayam rivam, where at our hearts blue yamantakam, pair of our navels chartreuse dotsi kilvayam yum. At our navels the green mioyam yum. At our secret place blue Drubchen, pair on our broad shoulders white namgyal, pair on our left shoulders blue yungron, pair on our right thighs up in Dogyal couple, on our left thighs amber council couple. swords and animal face demonic, shines each of these 24 rascals, have 3 faces, 6 arms, 4 legs spread, white Vajra wings charnam round adorn, hands wielding weapons marked with their own signs that forgets for mist face gatekeep, goes from the mandala periphal, reason and nations whose bounds attend, as the assemblies shwanarima, horses, there's copper iron and orange beams appears as the green sea, Palmieti and portage and prey, teeth in the mandates hard on the some that joint sized wisdom being, rose a king lying his heart on him, sun stands on green sized broad Vajravel, rain is in circle by the moon, tried each deity's crown is an home, and they throws and their hearts whom ten directions Buddhas now conform, blessing and empowerment my crowns out, adorned by among us in the Page 71. Om Vajrakilaya Suro Prasuro Adhitishta Muk Hala enemies, obstructors and evil spirits, Yochita Rotan Maraya Humped. Om Vajrakilaya Magutala Pratala Shatarachahum, enemies, obstructors and evil spirits, Maraya Humped. Om Vajrakilaya Rakta Jvala Mandala Rakshan, enemies and obstructors, Vasam Kuru Maraya Humped. Fiat with furious compassion for all evil ones. The sublime sun becomes passionately concerned for all beings of the three realms. I visualize myself as the great glorious one. In my right palm is a white Apona moon mandalam. In my left palm is a red moon upon a sun mandala. On the 5 fingers of my right hand are moon mandalas, the side of lentils, upon which are Om, Hum, Svam, Ham. On the 5 fingers of my left hand are sun mandalas, the size of lentils, upon which are Hum, Lam, Mam, Pam, Tam. Dissolving into light, the 6 syllables transform into the 5 implements. From this the 5 families instantly appear as the 5 male Buddhas and 5 consorts. Om Mahashunyata Jnana Svabhava Atma Koham Samayaho Samayastvam Vajra Anjali. Rays of bodhicitta light emerging from the union of the male and female deities dissolve the Kila into shimmering light, transforming it into a blue home. Om Vajrakilaya The home transforms into a dark blue, restful one with one face, 2 arms, and 3 eyes. He holds a Kila in his right hand and an iron hook in his left. His lower body is a 3-sided sky iron Kila with a savagely sharp tip, and he flashes with sparks of fire like hot iron pulled from a blacksmith's burning embers. I visualize Humkara at the upper note, the 8 wrathful ones at the 8-sided shaft, and Mahabala at the lower note. All 10 wrathful ones are together with a concert and animal-faced emanations, and the 4 sides of the lower note are the 4 gatekeepers, and below the water dragon are the 4 king warriors, and the 3 blades are the 12 Kilaya guardians. All pores of myself and the sublime sun are filled with tiny dark blue wrathful ones the size of barley grains. With mouths wide open and fangs bared, they each have 1 face and 2 arms, and they brandish various weapons, reverberating with the sound of Kilaya. They fill us completely, leaving no gaps. And the foreheads of the deities of the the threefold mandala are marked with a white Om. They throats with a red and they hearts with a blue. Ahum terrifying, blazing, wrathful one, intrinsic nature of Buddha's forms, risen from Vajrakilaya cause me to rise in this precious form. White light radiates from the Om syllables at our foreheads and makes delightful offerings to the forms of the victorious ones of the 10 directions. All the compassion and blessings of the enlightened forms are gathered back in the form of Om syllables. The light dissolves into our foreheads and causes our bodies to blaze with sublime splendor. Thus I become the embodiment of all the Buddha's Vajra forms. Om Buddha Kili Kilaya Kaya Vajranan Jvala Jvala Prajvala Prajvala Shputa Shputa Sarva Nasa Panaye Humpe Ahum terrifying, blazing, wrathful one, intrinsic nature of Buddha's speech, risen from Vajradharmadhatu, cause my speech to rise as precious speech. A red light radiates from the syllables at our throats and makes delightful offerings to the speech of the victorious ones of the 10 directions. All the compassion and blessings of the enlightened speech are gathered back in the form of syllables. The light dissolves into our throats and causes our speech to blaze with sublime power. Thus I become the embodiment of all the Buddha's Vajra speech. Om Padma Kili Kilaya Vak Vajranan Sarva Dushtan Hri Sodhanaya Humpe Ahum terrifying, blazing, wrathful one, intrinsic nature of Buddha's mind, risen from Vajradharmadhatu, cause my mind to rise as precious blue light radiates from the Hum syllables at our hearts and makes delightful offerings to the mind of the victorious ones of the 10 directions. All the compassion and blessings of the enlightened mind gather back in the form of Hum syllables. The light dissolves into our hearts and causes our minds to blaze with sublime force. Thus I become the embodiment of all the Buddha's Vajra mind. Om Vajrakilaya Chitta Vajranan Petali Mantala Magutala Humpe. The light emerging from the 6 syllables of the 3 mandalas, 3 vajras, pervades the 3 realms of samsara and empowers the life force of all sentient beings with primordial wisdom. The 6 afflicted states of beings living in the 6 realms of samsara are purified and transformed into the 6 seeds. Anri Sutri Predum. These 6 seeds then melt into light, transforming into Om Ahum. The light then gathers back and dissolves into the 3 places of the Sublime Sun and myself. The 3 realms are thereby brought under our power. Om Ahum, Om Ahum, Om Ahum. Sapasvari Samaya Jahum Vanu. Ahum, love, compassion, use skillful means to help beings according to their needs, to complete Buddha activities with grand empowerment and seed is here. With Paranapet, light rays radiate into the 10 directions from the home at my heart and touch the victorious ones, the embodiments of the 5 kayas, together with their retinues. The mind streams of all those who have gone to bliss are invoked, and they are supplicated to grant empowerment, that the essence of their body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities descend like rainfall that possesses the nature of the 5 heroic seeds. With Samharanahum, they gather at the 5 places on my head, where they dissolve and transform into Om, Hum, Tram, Hri, Ah, and Mum, Lam, Mam, Pam, Dam. This transform into the 5 karma herukas, appearing as the Buddhas of the 5 families with consorts. The nectar that flows from the point of their union fills up my entire body. I become adorned with the the blood-drinking deities and consorts who abide in union at the scalpels of my crown, and the empowerment of the five wisdom is perfectly fulfilled. Page 21. Light rays emanate from our hearts, inviting the wisdom beings. Revealing your blazing wondrous forms risen from the pure and unborn sphere of Dharma, Datum great Vajra. Use with you, Lord, from that sphere, please come here to accomplish existence as you and be granted empowerment. See these restful wisdom, King Vajrakilaya. Love is you, Lord, please come here and be Stokilaya, Siddhi, please manifest all the signs and symbols of success. and break the grip of pride, urges in bow and renew. I pay one point in Mejjati puho praticahom home raise of offerings mine maiden real koi emergent union outer and inner and secret I present to the emanated sun-born deities. Please receive these offerings, none to leave without acceptance or rejection. Om Vajra Argyam Padyam Pushpe Dupe Alokyam Gande Nevidyam Shabda Praticasa. Great Amrita crafted from pain and 1,000 branches, great rakta of klesha, secret space, for wisdom, great Tormadi, elixir Mahapancha Amritam Rakta Balintaka whom ignorance mountainous pile of flesh, desire, a swirling ocean of blood, hatred upon him. This we give to Dorjes in Poe and his retinue. Yus Dharma sphere consort Korlogien, depth and wrathful kings, wisdom and means, formed and wrathful queens from the innate sphere emanations sent to engage ex-tiger head in the soul his fangs, bared mandalas for directional guards, 12 kilogars charged with slaughter, green beings of copper, iron, and congenial others bound kila, guards homage and praise to you, and you cause the times come to fulfill your heart pledge, fulfill destructive actions of glorious great Vajrayos sons Kordan, Korlogien fiercely dance and space sound emptiness, mantras melody roars like thunder, thus I will practice until the Samaya is fulfilled in the ultimate expanse of space. Light rays radiate to the 10 directions from the seed syllable and the mantra string and my heart, and invoke the essence of the three roots sacred bond. All the blessings of body, speech, and mind descend like rainfall in the forms of white, red, and blue, dissolving unobstructedly into my three places. Then all the blessings and powers of all the victorious ones' compassion in the form of inconceivable Vajrakilaya deities, large and small, gently fall and dissolve into me. The deities of my body mandala, as well as the deities in union residing within my channels, are like the seeds of an open sesame pot. They and all the deities of the mandala reverberate with the sound of the mantra. like the sound of a broken beagle.
Dhamma friends, please take a break for 20 minutes and then we start the teachings.
Om
내나 고노에
Khenpo Rinpoche.
오야 드니 주로나 봐 니바쇼 송 드니 카탕 땡지 제르테라 산낭나 제직도 샘디바젤 송 제카탕 데서 체송드니 주축 양적 바송 대시요들이 또든 산낭 제직도 지바들이 사실 제야 매바 용거리 대체로 같이 했더니 찌름 나기 남장들이 참아 그지 자로 요새 똑같은 거 싸고 요래 드는 거선 거 요래 때 말이 저도 잠감이 찌름 되는 양상 장윤은 뭐 드니 냠니 매제백감이 찌름 장사에 그 바상 양상 다 대sem을 좀 되는 드니 rumok이 집안에 제들이 세는 박차만 거죠 근데 라트인 집아들이 마치고 바다를 트인데 그 라디다 한 침배 이시 오 나서 삼체 세빌인 지게 요래지 제가 통계를 마치고 바다를 제가 요래지 니발라드니 은혜 전에더니 라디 통주에서 상속선 남반지 줄했잖아 랑너들 심지를 사제제 니바 토지요 봐 들 이치 첨보 째네 들 하정선 라디들이 랑게 희바치 보여 요래 이 연구가 가면서니 배는 칼라사를 가지네 라장 칼라사는 직접만 라디 왕이 드인들이 라디를 떼와지 드인들 들이 딜들이 잡동 총코스 집에 당마송 그 마디나들이 땅에 칼라사요 라디 직접만이네 선 다다 롱마티 또 빠지 다리 말을 바티들이 사고를 조랑 탐지 대만이 바 조랑 가르치려더니 라디 왕이 샘을 드인들 라디 타르토바들이 따와 마영바 가는 공부세지 봐 따와 마영바는 약라티고요 말이 들이 따와라들이 영장 마영 제바요 버가면서니 라치고 라치니 홍진라 라리 제바리데 들이 뒤져더니 당 라치 같이 보시는데 이치제 대바다 담아대 봐 대지 domne 이치 제보요네 들이 대와게 된게 같이 뭐 들이 니가 가지고 있는 거지 람람람 조남 탐지를 탕만 못 되냐 대리들이 랑 제식도 땡인지 저렇게 봐 이렇게 제보요래 돌아다 당도 이치제 대바진 못해 너는 이치 제보요 그래 대와게 이치 나를 대와고 요래 들이 대가 라카는 땡땡 상랑도 제게 대봐 땡인지 저렇게
So friends continue to recite the mantra. So yesterday when we were speaking about the 4 nails, there was one point that I missed to mention about the nail of samadhi, where we are focusing single-pointedly on the appearance of the deity. Also, we didn't have enough time yesterday. And so regarding the single-pointed focus on the appearance of the deity, this means that we should never forget about the deity. The deity never leaves our mind. And so some people in the beginning, they might think that when we visualize the deity, then the entire form of the deity, body color and the implements and the ornaments and so on, all of these parts must appear in the mind all together at the same time right away. So that's kind of how they start the practice. But this is not really actually what has to be done, but it develops gradually. So we are training for a long time and we are habituating, doing it over and over again. And so sometimes when you are training in the visualization of the deity, then when you're actually not in session, you should go through the visualization, read through it, and look at the picture of a deity, and then really try to memorize it so that you are drawing the image of the deity, like drawing an image with your mind. And so if you do this many times, you are placing many habitual imprints of that into your mind. And so then when you really think of the deity, what really arises in your mind when you visualize the deity, you think of the deity, is the qualities of the deity, which is, first of all, the deity possesses omniscient wisdom. The deity knows all of our minds. And the deity also possesses great love, just like a mother loves her only child. And then the deity also possesses great power, which arises from the twofold bodhicitta. And also, because that is the power of the deity, through that we can understand that all sentient beings can also attain that state. So when you think of the deity, therefore in brief, you should do so with great trust in the deity, with a real love and affection for the deity at all times. If the deity is always in your mind, for example, when you're eating food, you will instantly remember the deity. So normally we don't think of the deity or anything like that when we're eating. But if you really have developed this love for the deity, then no matter what you do, the deity will be in your mind. And that is what is meant with this instruction that all eating and drinking becomes a Gana Chakra feast offering. Otherwise, if you're not remembering the deity, then you're just thinking, oh, I'm eating. And that is more a neutral state of mind. And because of this sense of the self, it is an ignorant state of mind. So this is not how we should go about our activities, but in whatever you do, have the deity in your mind. And ultimately, what that means is actually to remain without distraction from the natural state of the mind, from the view, which is the nail of meditation that we have mentioned. Actually, if you're not distracted, then you don't really have to go through the visualization of the deity. But when there still are times of distraction, sometimes you're distracted, sometimes not, that is really when the deity is very important. That is when you have to think of the deity, or you can think of the Hung syllable, which is the same. So in brief, how to keep the deity in mind is through trust, which is the trusting faith, clear faith and trusting faith. Especially you need to have strong trust in the deity and really hold the deity in your mind with great love in whatever you do, in all of your activities. So for the nail of samadhi, which is the single-pointed focus on the appearance of the deity, faith is most important, to remember the qualities of the deity and to trust in the deity and keep the deity in your heart with great love, which is like a loving trust that you should keep with you when you think of the deity. So that is the kind of result of having developed this nail of samadhi.
다요 송코르치 바데 강리 다레 송고요레 다디 레타 박차서마 다디가 돌아요레 레 박차데 레데 사지에게 사지 사케가 막캡송레 사지 사케 막캡송아 땡문이 것도 다지 니오니 주데 캡게 말이 레게 지서 단거리 빼나 뜨는서 레 박차서마 다디가 돌아오나 니스베베 시인을 제가 홍근하는 적도는 다디 박차면은 동담도 좀제 동반이 있어. 동담도 좀제 동반이 저인 포주면은 저리 레 민토고 말이 텔레티니자 단 용화 이제 노베 맞춰봐 빼는 따뜻하다라마 계획이 같이 짜치고 sanang sangsang que no pe ma sopa te ta yore pero so ngana ne kibo mo se lama mambo yo na kibo mo se lo ni chala ga ya ma je na kwang no wa cha cha do de to ko de mi ti bori de to lama ge chi ni mang na pe ta ram ji ke song ro yore song a song ji song za song ni yo ma re 대다우는 소속했더니 다른 거는 자나 들랑 이것은 그런 총도거리 홍급도 소거를 취돼요. 나오는 바 랩들 들이서 거기서 송투고 나이들 레박차 요래 술라시를 뒤즈는 뒤리 송아야 때리 그래서 사적서 삼바다 이제 체비 바구나 양 파치샤 투고요래 어때서 사적서에서 거는 취소인데 사적서 공나요. 이 대외에서 깨름대 그 송아게 강면을 되는 다사다 동당산 적심 다른 거는 자는들이 다또들이 간다 홍고들 어디 잡아서 두고 요래대 레저 박차도 두고 요래고 대다를 들이지 깨름 땡이 이제 저기 용띠 다 총총질 송코양이 들이지 용띠 삼지 용고 요래변 내가 그들이 레도 내가 그들이 레 박차도 타토거든요. 예공 동담게 된 바거든요. 그냥이 까마 찍을들이 세비되는 좀 내라들이 사지 병삼 좀 잡아서 온 거요래. 맨 가보 배송하더니 싹게지기와 까빠빠트 싹바에 사미지기와 예삼사와 병제송 대다버데 칼치오니 체도 받고 추저지는 가보 배송을 대탑절 때에는 소속을 따와들을 게 이치지 와도나 산적sem이 지우나 산적셈 공성도도 동담 따와나 어디를 내거든 타송 답에나 내를 좀 되면 좀 되는 데 받추도 똑같은 것은 거요. 되게 고르게 이치 뭐요래. 대망벌로 라마마면은 가주시오요래. 라 소금나들이 산능 비용데 대하고 그래지.
So we also in the practice, in the context of seeking refuge, there's also a protection sphere that is established. So the deity also grants protection, and that is on a relative and an ultimate level. So during the retreat, when we take a refuge, it is from an ultimate perspective, where there is no duality of one who takes refuge and the refuge. And so actually, if we really want to create a protective sphere of protection, the actual refuge or protection is really within one's own mind. It is the transformation of one's own mind, and it is one's own faith and trust. And it is said that the supreme protection sphere is the protection sphere of bodhicitta. And on the ultimate level, for example, if you meditate on the syllable Hong, then in that moment there is no self. Therefore, you are naturally protected. Because why do we need a protective sphere, a protection in the first place? It is because there is a self. And as long as there is this concept of a self, there are karmas and karmic imprints. All these karmas and those imprints arise from self-grasping. And for as long as self-grasping is present, even the Buddha cannot take it away from us with his hands, or kind of cover it, or prevent it from ripening. So on the relative level, for as long as there is a dualistic perception of self and other, we will have to be bound to follow karma, and no one can do anything about it, because all karma and imprints arise from the self, and the self naturally leads to that. But so then, if one engages in practice and one realizes, one understands there is self and other are non-dual. If one enters the non-dual space of primordial awareness, then within that space there are no karmas, habitual imprints. There is no self-grasping. And so for this reason, it is that ultimately karma is also empty. And what that means is that if the cause is empty, absent, then a result can also not ripen. For example, if a cause is not created, then the 4 elements, for instance, cannot affect one negatively, harm one. For example, there were many very precious lamas and teachers who remained unharmed in the face of outer, inner, and secret harm. For example, when we were in a prison, there were many lamas in prison, and among them was Khenpo Rinpoche. And Khenpo Münzel spent 20 years in that prison, and this entire time, he was really the only one in our unit. He didn't have to do anything at all. He was the only one who could just stay in his room and sit there practicing and doing his recitations. And nobody else was able to do that. So it just naturally happened that way because he was naturally protected. And so in general, there are many lamas like that. And so what that is that the protection is the non-dual protection where one has realized that there is no duality between the one protected and that thing to be protected from. So when one rests within the view, the natural state of the mind, one naturally enters a protective sphere. Or for example, also when you visualize the Hung syllable. But then again, when this thought of I am, this me arises, then again, we are not protected because then our karmas and imprints also return. So the best protection is on a relative level to cultivate bodhicitta, immeasurable love. When bodhicitta arises, through bodhicitta and boundless love, actually all obstacles can become pacified. Whoever meditates in a state of bodhicitta will be protected. And now on the ultimate level, when one rests within the state of the ultimate bodhicitta or the view, there is no more duality. So such a person who has realized the view and, for example, meditates on the Hung syllable, they will naturally be protected. And also they have an ability to turn back karmas and habitual imprints. So that is the quality that arises from cultivating the nail of samadhi. It is this protection sphere that one naturally enters. And from a temporary perspective, because of this protection sphere, one will free oneself of hopes and fears, and one will be able to turn back negative karmas and imprints. And then on the ultimate level, if one then practices and continues to rest within the natural state of the mind, one will also be able to bring inconceivable benefit also to others. Also, Gampopa had said in a kind of a list of superior, unique dharmas, he had said that it is a greater benefit, a far greater benefit to practice the undefiled virtue for just a brief moment than it is to practice defiled virtues for even many aeons. So that is also very important. So once you have gained confidence in the view, in the natural state of the mind, once you have gained confidence in your ability to sustain bodhicitta, if we know that I can sustain bodhicitta, then you have already become liberated from karma. You have transcended karma. And so in the Dzogchen teachings, it is said, this is the dharma that transcends cause and effect or karma. So there are many instructions on that too that you can read in scriptures, and many lamas, many gurus have also taught on that. But this is really the essence of this nail of samadhi, which is the single-pointed focus on the appearance of the deity.
옛날에 고자가 라시 바데들이 남칼라 롱거 리바가 디즈 추고 롱거 송저 진인지 구조면만 내요래 지금 장미 바체서 콩나 바체 요래서 이제 임발이 시바 드는 것이 진지 공도 제바까지 대발들이 사가 고시 받는지 들이 서로 습지 담지를 라데 공노 습지 담지 대식 뭐지 셰드 셰도도래 오 라칸 셰도만 보고잖아 라카 찍을 때 셰도 상진은 촬영을 때 셰도 따와도 이제 대식 뭐지 습지 감데 상제 습지는 상제는 다다 심 장마디 심 장마디들이 라를 되어요 이제 심 장마 잡아가니 산축 심지는 심 장마 잡아가니 셰도도 싸워오는 메롱낭데 들이 라카데 촬영을 라이크 리 키워드 잡던 누지 직딩은 탐 총아들이 요까지 저도 참아더니 들이 가자라는 탐선데 셀라에 고족이 말은 난 산축 습지랑지 산축 습지 사바다 니지랑지 대게들이 다디 시작 자루로부터 시작을 됐다고는 들이 사에 그 유인들이 공 유인은 하다고 그랬지 유인 보고들이 그래서 다디는 자루로부터 쇼고요래 셀라에 고족 사가르고는 때레스 난디들이 산축 습지랑지래서 리테베들 라이스를 합대들이 온과 아마 홍생세에서 여러 고마 적을 거 정말 적어요래 리테 누피 탐지를 탐통 차와 봐봐는 이 탑성데 누피 탐지 다디는 우디게 신바들이 뒤에서 임시를 어떻게 다 성상 뒤에 잡았더니 그 소랑 탑장을 산축설에 세라 고속에서 대신에 들이 땅하게 반을 적고래지.
So sometimes people ask about the generation stage, the visualization, a part of that. And so I say that the wisdom deity is visualized in the space and before us, and then it dissolves into us. And so then they wonder also about this wisdom deity, thinking that the deity that we visualize and the wisdom deity, how do they actually appear and exist? And since one appears and then dissolves into me. And so how we should understand this relation here, the deity that we are visualizing ourselves at and the wisdom deity that we are inviting. So the Sambhogakaya possesses 5 certainties. And actually, the Dharmakaya and the Sambhogakaya are an innate union. So actually, that means that those wisdom beings are always present. They always here, all pervading and unmoving from that Dharmakaya state. So we speak about there being infinite pure lands, and we say that all those wisdom beings, they dwell in those pure lands. And then while they dwell there, they are also inseparable from the Dharmakaya. So when we visualize the wisdom being, then we are recognizing that fact, that point. And visualizing it in this way and bringing this to mind, the meaning of this to mind is like you are opening up the temple doors and you're seeing what is really there. So it's like you're opening up your doors of faith. And that is why we visualize this outer form of the deity. And also, what we need to recognize here is that all sentient beings possess Buddha nature, which is like crystal balls. And so imagine you open a temple doors and the temple is filled with many crystal balls. And then the deity appears in space, and this deity is reflected in each of those crystal balls. So then there is this appearance of many deities reflected through, radiating through each of those crystal balls. And so that is the pure mind of all sentient beings that is naturally connected to the deity. And the pure mind is recognized when we cultivate bodhicitta, which is what purifies the mind. And when the mind becomes pure, it becomes like this crystal ball or like a mirror that clearly then reflects the form of the deity in various ways. The deity appears large as Mount Meru and then dissolving into the entire universe, and small as mustard seeds and dissolving into yourself. And having the nature of bodhicitta and having the nature of love and compassion. And so as the deity dissolves, you think that your and all being self-grasping disintegrates or melts just like an ice block melting. So when you practice the deity, visualize the deity with this awareness and recite the mantra. And then you have to practice and habituate for a long time. The reason why we have to make a consistent effort is because it takes a long time to melt this ice block of self-grasping. So therefore, on the outer level, visualize the outer form of any deity that you practice, and inside within your mind, it is the nature of bodhicitta. And then, so you can either visualize the form of the deity, or you can visualize the seed syllables, like it is said in the text, the white red ant, blue hung syllable. So think that the deity appears, or the syllables appear, and then they descend down like rain falling down, and they permeate the entire universe and all sentient beings. And so then imagine that all the beings in the universe, they have received the altruistic mind, and their self-grasping and their attachments and so forth, they're clinging to a concrete reality, has somewhat diminished, and bodhicitta has arisen in their minds. So that which is actually to be obtained or to be cultivated, therefore, is bodhicitta. So it is within such a state of mind that we should engage in the mantra recitation and the practice.
only me the Tata Shadi, Yori, Nutama Yori, Dr. Wogan Telaso, Yori, take carried. Tan dog lesa leg pakcha take make up Gigi Jovadung. Ben let up Gigi Jovadung, Ben Chusoya was a unit in Lama Gation, Soya was una. The only take a chicken, oh, Trador, Lama Tradoti, Takashi Chutor, no batang, Romagado, or the Lord Gigi Jovetri, Tahotri, Charity, Trador, Trador didn't dread, dream same didn't. Dread, dream, Loquadri Basso. Digging or Loquadri, such a Yakoji, who said, Tema, Doctor, no button is there, Loquadri Basso. Somebody but it's only dog, Yore, Chisora, check Yakochi, or Tilly Yard and Chegos. Chicken Yami, correction, not Tilly Yakochi, Tilly Yard Chegos of the day, the Tilly Lordy, my Loquadri Badina, check it to all Yakochi, just sold the water and tasted Lordy. The Tona Raju dread down the Malari Baki, Raju dreaded them similar Tado in Lamsang so and jelly this up also. The number 10 jelly wants him at this Loquan dream awesome. Then it did the Tamari or the Tamari, Lord Gigi Jewelry, Nick up Gigi Jewelry, Wilson, Driam Teta, did Namtori, did that get time you want to do six on Namtoka, Ransala, Namtor Ransala shake. Not all answer carry. The won't go through the stone. Rasi Saji, young woman, she not to sugar in the tomatoes. Oh, not to sugar candy. Ya, too much of the Shetang. You can't imagine Shetang crying with the Shetang, the June Chibu, any half corner. Caught the mood just our new one, never Jay or Hakon. Shetang Shimata, rap the doctor tongue, Shetang Kong, Ramji. Sorry, she charged and not thought Tantipan Tamti, cooked you one day. Captain Haja Tower, Yako Charger, Gon Haja Pengi, Melum Tower, she said. Then Nagi, you won't not the Hakoson, you won't run water, she charged. The same jetty, she be she grant or charger, so. She grant, you mean so in a naked dog or new more, same Sharon, that it took gone up, oh, love them told me about them. Meritata Topata, control. Oh, they matter to give a great accident laptop. The machine, Dalo second father, Son daily low down, the same that was it. The midden tone of day, don't draw to be charged. That painting you and never justify. That remarked, painting check no Johnny Jan, lock one in it, no button, the box out corner. The Ellen to the art, set up my wishes, the main girl, based on Jish by the young married. This is the Lord is the better, not to sound, not to you move your shilly your grace on Kalaya, and Tavari, the ring, the young don't just be a Gijawata, Tato de Kazar, Pin Chivari, Mato de Kazar, you cheat to my Jabat law. Regent the Shea, Nipot the gong with the government. That also better to work with chocolate. How fume there is.
So then, when we visualize the clear form of the deity, we habituate to the single-pointed samadhi of visualizing the deity clearly in order to stabilize it. And so when it becomes stabilized, then it becomes an antidote to the confused perception regarding outer appearances. So the visualization of the deity is an antidote to our false perception of outer appearances. And so then with that visualization, we visualize this in terms of sights and forms, and in terms of speech, we recite the mantra of the deity, and the recitation of the deity's mantra is an antidote to our these thoughts that grasp at objects by associating notions with the actual things. So it is to believe in the truth of what is heard, basically. And that is the nail of the mantra recitation. So we visualize the deity and we recite the deity's mantra over and over again to stabilize this perception, this awareness. And in the secret mantra, in general, in terms of mantra, there's different kinds of mantra. There is the secret mantras, of which there are many, and there is the knowledge mantras, and there is the dharani mantras or the retainer mantras. For example, there is the 100-syllable Vajrasattva mantra, which is one dharani mantra, a longer mantra. And so from that perspective of reciting the dharani mantra, for example, if it's Vajrasattva, one thinks it's more of like the mindset of a beginning practitioner who thinks that I am very sinful. You, the deity, have great compassion. Now I am confessing all my sins to you. Through my confession, may all my negativities become purified. So it's like we are talking to another person, like we're having a dialogue when we are reciting this 100-syllable mantra. And when we practice the Vajrakilaya mantra, the Vajrakilaya Sarvabhigna Bam Ped, that is calling that name of Vajrakumara, and it actually is kind of a line, which is like words that are express the ultimate wisdom awareness kila. Wisdom awareness kila or Vajrakumara, Vajra youth. It is the Vajra. The ultimate is called the Vajra. And in the mantra, it says, for example, Bignan Bam Hung Pet, and that refers to this wisdom awareness, Kila, which subdues or brings under control hindrances and obstructors. So Bignan Bam Hung Pet is bring under control, subdue those hindrances and obstructors. So actually, that is the meaning of when we are reciting this mantra. Actually, all of the secret mantras come down to one single meaning: to subdue the obstructors, actually. That's the meaning of all secret mantra, because what's the real obstructor? What's the real hindrance? It is our own thoughts. All obstructions, all hindrances are caused by our own thinking. It is our own thoughts that create afflictive emotions, that accumulate karma and habitual imprints. So a thought arises, and then you cling to it. So it becomes a very strong feeling. And then you think that this is how it is, it's true. So you attach to it. And so you accumulate karma. And then this karma creates a karmic imprint, which causes you to wander in samsara, which is what causes your mind to freeze into an ice block. So for someone who has realized the view, they recognize this endless chain of thoughts arising in the mind, and recognizing the thought instantly, they do not cling so that it becomes this strong feeling, but they are able to liberate that thought and break it down, destroy that thought, so that none of it is left behind. It becomes completely purified, and it dissolves into its natural state, which is referred to as the primordial purity. Actually, Milarepa had said that primordially there are no gods and no demons. We speak about gods and demons and saying that our thinking, our thoughts are the real demon. But Milarepa said that there are ultimately, primordially, no gods and no demons. So we say no, there is something that's harming us, that's obstructing us, like a demon, something negative. And all of that actually ultimately is thought, is the thoughts in our own mind. And the thoughts create karma, and the karmas create imprints. And then as a result of that coming together, then it appears temporarily that there is this condition that arises as this demonic force, this hindrance that appears before in our world. So for example, if there is a good Dharma center and there is a good Lama there and engaging in great activities, and then for example, there is a disciple who is very jealous at that, and they try to undermine that Lama's and that center's activities, so they are causing harm. And so that kind of obstruction temporarily appears. So first there is attachment, and then so from the person who is harming, right? And then that develops into jealousy, and then that develops into competitiveness, or this ambitiousness from a negative perspective. So it develops into an evil intention of wanting to undermine, wanting to harm, wanting to be better. So when someone is doing good, then they will do something to undermine that and obstruct that. So that is something that we should be careful about and turn away from. But of course, there is a better kind of ambitiousness, which is, for example, if you see somebody else doing good and it inspires you and you feel like, I will also do good, I will do even better, but without undermining the other person, then that is good, because then it actually encourages you to do even better. So that's something you should not turn away from, that kind of ambitiousness. The one to turn away from is where you are undermining and harming other people's positive, good activities. So that's something to be very careful about. And so Milarepa also therefore had said, so first he said that there are no gods and no demons, and when the demon arises, it arises from as a thought within one's own mind stream. And it arises from that thought of jealousy. So we have to be very careful about that one. This jealousy then develops into maliciousness and competitiveness and so forth. And so, however, does this demon, so-called demon, exist somewhere to begin with? So at first, it doesn't actually exist. It is just a temporary arising due to various conditions coming together. So the real demon really are the thoughts in the mind. And so it is said in the text that the mantra means that all hindrances are brought under control, which means all conceptual thinking disintegrates into its natural state. There's one quote by Jamgyön Kongtrul, and he had said, my own mind is Buddha, but I haven't realized this. Discursive thoughts are Dharmakaya, but I do not recognize this. So how are discursive thoughts, our conceptual thoughts, Dharmakaya? So for example, if you're getting angry, so you know the view, and you're getting angry at a person. So if you know the view, then you already know that hatred is a fault and the root cause of wandering in this ocean of samsaric suffering. And you know that it is the cause of birth in the hell realm for self and others. So you know that, but then when you know, if you are someone who has realized the view, then the moment the anger arises, you don't have to think about it at all. So somebody who hasn't realized the view thinks about the faults of anger, right? But someone who has already realized the view and anger arises, they don't have to analyze it or think about it in any way. The moment anger arises, anger has a quality that is very clear. When you get angry, all other thoughts stop right there. That's this overpowering quality that anger has. So this overpowering quality of the anger is this aspect of clarity. It stops all other activity in the mind. And if you recognize that, then it actually supports your view of seeing, helps you to see the nature of the mind with more clarity. It really helps your meditation practice. And so from this perspective, the anger is called the mirror-like wisdom. And this is how we should understand all the 5 afflictive emotions. When you see the true nature of the afflictions, then what you recognize is that they are actually primordial awareness, that they arise from the fundamental nature of the mind. And what these emotions, afflictive emotions are, when they arise, when you recognize them, are nothing but the creative expression of the mind itself, of awareness itself. So this primordial awareness are the afflictive emotions when you recognize them. And how you recognize them, so whether or not you have recognized them, you can see for yourself. So, for example, when you get angry, so first a feeling arises, and then you meditate, and then the anger dissolves, and then you see that person you were angry at again, then not a trace of that feeling will be left in your mind. When you look at that person, you will be able to smile at them and say, hello, dashidele, and without any negative feelings. Otherwise, if you have not yet liberated that thought, then you might, when you see that person again, you will not be able to even go close to them. And you will keep thinking about it, even if months and years pass by, this kind of resentment stays in your mind. And then it will affect the other person. And so you both are creating causes for falling into the hell realm. And then people act out and they hurt each other with body and speech. And all of that comes from this negative, harmful state of mind, wanting to undermine, wanting to harm others. So the reason why it arises is because of these karmic imprints that we have in the mind. And if we reinforce them, then samsara will perpetuate. And then for many lifetimes, this karma will continue to ripen. And yet, ultimately, a demon does not really exist. So in the sadhana also it says, reduce them all to dust in an instant. So that which reduces them to dust in an instant is this wisdom awareness kila that transforms all these thoughts arising in the mind into primordial awareness. So that is the fruition, the result of the Kilaya, reciting the Kilaya mantra. And to someone who has realized the view, whether it's the Kilaya mantra or the 100-syllable mantra, the benefits are exactly the same. But to someone who hasn't realized the view, they will not have this unshaking trust. And so for them, they do require different methods like the 100-syllable mantra and teachings on that, and then on teachings on how to cultivate the 4 powers, to purify it, 4 powers of confession and so forth. But someone who has realized the view, for them it is sufficient to only rest within that state and just recite the Kilaya mantra.
조위속을 예만등 스바 총강 파파트지만 총강지만 디 스바 총총 디 토가라 다운 대야 스바든 강바라오리 저들 라시 뒤면서는 이 스바 총강 디 토가를 벤 태원담도 라태원담도 요 삼들 드면다데 디 토가라들이 셰드도데 네임 드레삼 셰드도데 네람 네 답디들 도데 네삼을 같이 요야 띠와들이 용각을 줬다며 하여튼 총총이 용각을 줬다면 디 나눠들이 디 니마요레시 디 니마들이 디 니마들 도디 네베담 띠와 용각담 디는 다 홍통나 뭐지바담들이 디다들이 베딱길이길라 홍파이지 디 저거지 다장들이 요데 다 하자 총총 공부도 가려져 하자를 빠뜨려 하자 때려 름 거부터 때려 름도 때려 들이 가리 공통 뭐 저딴데 대다들이 무보던 치마한테 배치업에 하자 타요 공고에 내공을 뛰는 타톡들이 담고 타통 코트도 만 코트 들이다다 니들이나 예송 들이 마사막 가실 제로요래 그리다가 많이만 때제 이름이라도 세배라들이 다다다 공과제요래 나와 깜짝 감일레걸 잡고 보냐 보아사지들 대답이다 특별만 모르지 난 돈다데 가래리 라라당부 오시차 니 바드 도보차 도보 나게들이 배는 거 다는 뭐바로 샷보다고 대치아들이 라다 있으면 봐 차들이 르친지 타니 오데 라라데 다 년이 저거를 나한테 같이 되나 지체들이 당하다 당고래 들제다다 파타가가 소잖아 다 살람 범죄 고데는 두마컴은 범죄로 거래 대서 그러지 이 말이 라타 니시와 라데 쇠래 라이 세브리 예고에 라이 세브 사속 세브리 그런 뭐지 그 성들이 시설장 라데들이 많고다 강리 패공을 다 라데 강리만 말말말 라치다가 산적세고 잘려 주면들이 그다 장매 봐 요래 동쪽과들이 도마 로직 도마지 라 цел로 사야하고 차올란 그래요 사야하고 라치로 되는 그래요 요래데 로직 도마다 사마가 디 그래서 남절정 방어티나 로직 도마 대지서들이 라가 만용 내가 하고 그래. 배는 심지 속자 가서는 심지 바래. 대시서는 노를 두고 대다와 하고네. 그래 라라 타니는 산적심 속체의 제동. 그래 라가 다디지 색. 그래 심지 탐지 주일라더니 다디 요래. 대식도 봐. 이제 저거 심지 주일. 그러니까 심지는 이제 저거 제. 제가 심지가 주일라. 다디 랑은 이게 이게 다디 식도 봐. 배는 도보 하다 제가 친구들 되게 담보 도보에는 지마들이 파하자 약보지는 이 도보들은 닝다지들 각각 로마도 봐. 애들이 차를 빼대다. 들이 semtipa chaang을 빼대다. 라치도 산족세는 다 예년도 델라들이 라 담보 무엇이 받을 도보차. 들이 타만하다 있으면 봐. 하다 있으면 봐. 들이 체비be 산족세 봐. 돈이 희제서 다지 님이 봐. 하고는 이 따가는 양도고 요래. 들이 대다와 하고는 들이 콜로 공나지 저도 공나 뒤치라들이 샘들이 봐서 나코르데 대기요래. ben 라코르데 리 자잖아. 대서 라코르 공도들 공도 말이야. 라코르 리 코르들이 내년도 뒤는 콜고 그래. 맨마고 shum이게 따로 콜로. shum이 콜로 어디 코트 카요. 센전이 지선 로고 그래. 콜로고 용띠 센들이 냠는 콜로도 로고 만콜이 냠데 하장 같이 보여래. 이때 나랑 윤띠 사ትን 봤다 그래. 사속 습체로 삼바든지 속체로 삼바체비 봤다 보여지. 이게 체로 다라 타니 다 데리. 이도 이나 이제 뭐지 다다. 난 그렇게 쭉쭉 지체면 봐. 양당양들이 내 뒤로 가지는 랍상 콜로지니 담보칼에 콜 드리녀도 콜 나부 쇼과는 제를 안다는 이제 내가 그 나부 쇼과도 딱 빼지 나부 쇼과도 때는 콜로 통하면 다 콜로 통거든 드리 받은 콜로 통좀 해봐 드리 파티를 락바지로 떡으로 이거를 광고는 통하면 봐 자티 the Dratam Chili, Dadon Gigi Topa, the Drateri, Chadang Topa Mamojeri, Margaretry, Chadang Dun, Chadawachi Yakel, Maraji, Drakwa Delemato, said the Sao de Tokiore, Theatre, Madi, the Dadon Gigi, Nipore, Daratin, the Yuma Basim of Amacheve, that New United Southern New Boat, Tehako Gorete, Larta, Livata, Sasux and Tanya Rogorete.
So then we visualize during the mantra recitation, the main visualization is to visualize the mantra circle in the heart of the deity. And so now there are many different stages throughout the sadhana when it comes to the entire visualization. And so as you read through the visualization step by step, just as you read it, know that this is how it is and this is how it is. And then the actual visualization during the mantra recitation, that is on page 20 in our sadhana, where it says, in the main deity's heart is the wisdom being the size of a thumb joint, and so forth. That verse is the actual visualization for the mantra recitation. So you visualize yourself as the deity, and at the heart there is the wisdom being. And the wisdom being, it is like you are the house, and inside, in the center of that house, in the heart, is the wisdom being. And the wisdom being is the size of a thumb joint, and standing upon a sun disk and rolling a kila between his two hands. And then, so at the heart of this wisdom being then, again upon a sun disk, is a golden vajra, the size of a barley grain. So we visualize smaller and smaller. It becomes increasingly subtle. So first there is the size of a thumb joint, and then in the center of that is that vajra, which is the size of a barley grain. And then the hub of that vajra is then the size of a mustard seed. So it becomes smaller and smaller. And then within this hub, the heart of that vajra, the size of a mustard seed is upon a sun disk, the hung syllable, a dark blue hung syllable, encircled by the mantra string. And that is the Benza Kili Kilaya Hung Pet mantra. So just think that this mantra is there circling around the hung syllable. And so what's the reason for visualizing so small? It's because when we visualize small, the smaller we visualize, the more focused our awareness will be, the more single pointed it will be. So the more fine the visualization gets, the more focused, the mind becomes extremely focused. And then if the mind is very focused, then you will develop your ability of meditation, of practice. And so that is also, this intense focus is then also what will turn away the grasping at a concrete reality and the various concepts in our mind. So this is why we visualize in a very subtle way. And so the ultimate, the actual visualization during the practice is this one here on page 20, the visualization of the mantra garland. And according to the old tantric system, it is practiced in stages called the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment, which is related to the 4 yogas of Mahamudra, or the 4 joys according to the new tantric system. So according to the old tantric system, to give an example, so I guess there's this like elaborate instruction in a text that explains how we establish this relation to the deity which begins like seeing the deity like distant from yourself, like a king and so on. And eventually you're approaching the deity and you become one with the deity. So in the beginning, in the approach stage, we first identify the deity. So that's the deity. And then as we keep practicing, we come to we closely approach. So basically those 4 branches of approach and accomplishment are a process of getting closer and closer and closer to the deity. So then in the second step, we become like friends with the deity. And then in the third step, which is the accomplishment, we become like heart friends, like blood friends with the deity. And then fourth, in the great accomplishment, we become inseparable, non-dual with the deity. So in order to approach the deity and come closer and closer to the deity, we practice mantra recitation for an extended period of time. So that's also why often a certain number of mantras to be recited is prescribed. For example, for the White Tara mantra, we are told to recite 1,000,000 White Tara mantras. But as a matter of fact, it's not about the numbers really. But the reason why we are told to recite so many mantras is because we want to spend much time to become one with the deity. And what it really is that has to approach or come close to the deity is the mind. So we have to approach the mind of the deity. And that is ultimately bodhicitta. So once Yeshe Tsogyal asked Guru Rinpoche, so there's all these many deities, like where do they all come from? Why is there so many different deities? And Guru Rinpoche said, no, it's not that there are so many different deities. They all appear, even though they are limitless, they all appear as the natural expression of bodhicitta. So therefore they have a single essence. So that is the meaning of one taste appearing as a diversity. And then also a great diversity has one taste. So even though there might be millions of deities, they all are complete within a single deity. And a single deity may appear as millions of deities. So in the new tantric system where we speak about the 4 yogas of Mahamudra, and the third step is the step of one taste. So one taste appears as diversity, and diversity has one taste. But this is how we need to understand that diversity, the diverse appearances of the various deities, and likewise also sentient beings. No matter how many sentient beings there may be in the 6 realms of samsara, they have one taste, they have one mind. And so the more we cultivate bodhicitta, the stronger our bodhicitta, the more we approach the state of realizing that, which is the state of the deity's mind. So as bodhicitta increases, we are approaching, getting closer and closer to that ground, that mind. Because as we cultivate bodhicitta, self-grasping, it disintegrates more and more. And also, if one's compassion becomes boundless, then through one's own compassion pervading all sentient beings, one is then able to also liberate the self-grasping in the minds of sentient beings, of others. For example, we can see how that happens even between 2 friends, for example. So that the kind of the development of love between 2 friends. So first they are just like normal friends. And so then slowly they become really good friends. And then they create this bond of love, and then real love arises. And then when that arises, nothing can separate them. They won't separate again because it's like they have become one. The mind has become one. And it's the same with the deity. As we cultivate bodhicitta, we come closer and closer to the deity. So we go through the same steps, just like in a relationship to a person. So first we kind of acquaint ourselves with the deity. Then we become friends. Then we become really good friends. And then in the end, we merge non-dually with the deity. So it is a quality of immeasurable love, or this union of love or compassion and emptiness. And it is the result of having realized the non-duality of self and other. And so when you visualize the mantra and string, and so you visualize according to this verse here on page 20, and you recite the mantra. And while you recite the mantra and visualize the mantra circle, the mind stays there single-pointedly. And that's why it is also significant that this mantra circle actually turns, it moves, it turns. Because if it moves, then the mind can stay there focused. For example, it's just like this on prayer wheel. If I hold this prayer wheel in my hand, and I don't turn it, then I will forget about it. But if I turn it, then the mind stays there. For example, if I turn my prayer wheel, even a cat, for example, is mesmerized by it. If you don't turn it, the cat doesn't look, but if you turn the prayer wheel, the cats, they're just mesmerized and they keep staring at the wheel, and the eyes keep following the wheel. So it's just like that. When we focus on the mantra circle that is turning, then the mind stays there and therefore is not distracted. So that's an extremely crucial point. And so then, having engaged in this practice, what is a sign of having approached the deity? It is that your bodhicitta, your love and your compassion increase. First, immeasurable love arises, and from that, compassion arises. That is the sign that you have approached, have come close to the deity. And so when you practice those 4 branches of approach and accomplishment, really on an ongoing basis, continuously, only just stay with this mantra circle all the time throughout the 6 periods of day and night. Always have it in mind. And so it begins with, first you have this mantra circle, and then it starts to turn slowly, and then it accelerates quicker and quicker until it turns so fast that you can no longer perceive it visually. For example, it's like the wheel of an airplane's engine. So when you look at it before it turns, you can see it. You can see the wheel and its spokes. And then when it starts turning and accelerating, it turns so fast that you can no longer see it. And you can't see it, but there is this natural kind of humming sound, the woo that kind of comes off from the wheel, but you can't see it. However, if you were to reach into it with your hand, it would chop off your hand. So it's still, not that it's not there. So it's just like that. When you visualize the mantra string, it turns so fast that you can't see it, but it emits this natural sound of the mantra, and it naturally emits the sound, like it pervades the sound of the mantra. And if you stay with that single-pointedly as you recite the mantra, then it becomes an antidote to particularly the grasping at sound. These, as you mentioned before, these thoughts, grasping at the objects, by mixing them or associating different terms or notions with the actual things. So basically, when we do that, when we mix when we mix notions with the actual things, then we develop many thoughts of attachment and aversion. However, when you recite the mantra, through the sound of the mantra, you're actually not developing more thoughts of attachment and aversion. Actually, when you recite the mantra, you just hear the sound of the mantra, there is just awareness that remains clear, and there is no grasping at any sound. And so for this reason, the mantra circle and the recitation of the mantra serve as an antidote to these thoughts grasping at objects by associating terms with the actual things. And so what it means is that when you recite the mantra, then the ordinary afflictive emotions cannot connect to your mind. They cannot arise within your mind or kind of remain within your mind. And so in this way, you should train in order to come close to the deity. And again, how you come close to the deity is through your increasing of love and compassion and bodhicitta. And if you want to see a sign of accomplishment of Vajrakumara, then look at what arises in your mind. And so if there is a compassion that arises, a compassion which is infused with loving kindness, then that is a sign that you have come close to the deity. So for today, I will stop the instructions here.
Vajrakilaya sarva vignan vamhube. Om Vajrakilaya sarva vignan vamhube. From the mantra garland light rays and the second mantra garland issue forth from my mouth into the mouth of the consort. The self-resounding mantra proclaimed by the inconceivable dakas and dakinis in the consort for chakras aroused demon stream. From the consort secret place a mantra garland enters my vajra. And the deities residing within my channels proclaim the sound of the mantra. The mantra garland then dissolves into my heart. I visualize it uninterruptedly. Om Vajrakilaya Jahum Vamho Katan Kate Jaya Vijaya Ajite Aparajite Marasena Pramardaniya Sarva Vignan Vamhum Pei. Om Vajrakilaya Jahum Vamho Katan Kate Jaya Vijaya Ajite Aparajite Marasena Pramardaniya Sarva Vignan Vamhum Pei. Om Vajrakilaya Jahum Vamho Katan Kate Jaya Vijaya Ajite Aparajite Marasena Pramardaniya Sarva Vignan Vamhum Pei. Om Vajrakilaya Jahum Vamho Katan Kate Jaya Vijaya Ajite Aparajite Marasena Pramardaniya Sarva Vignan Vamhum Pei. Om A I U Ri Li Li I O Au Am A Kaka Ganga Cha Jajanya Tata Datana Tata Datana Papa Bapama Yaralava Shasha Sahaksha Swaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tvinopa Tishtadrido Mepava Sutokyo Mepava Supokyo Mepava Anurakto Mepava Sarva Siddhim Prayacha Sarva Karma Suchame Chitam Shriyam Kuruhum Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajram Mame Munja Vajribhava Mahasamaya Sattva Om Yadharma Hetu Prabhava Hetun Tesham Tathagato Yavadat Teshan Chayo Nirodha Evam Vadi Mahashramana Sva Glorious great Vajrakilaya and divine court, please come here. I make outer inner and secret offerings. I praise your body, speech, mind, qualities, activities. I confess transgressions, heedlessness, and confusions, vows made broken, lovingly consider me with compassion, and please grant all accomplishments to me. Page 36. Gurus, knowledge holders, deities, dakinis, and osbound ones gathered like clouds in the sky. Through the power of your pasamaya, please consider us with love and shower down great blessings upon this mandala and as yogi. Da